This is Tech Me As I Am, a video series and podcast where self-love is shaking up the status quo of corporate America. We're diving into authentic stories that are creating space for you to feel seen, be vulnerable, and succeed working in the everyday. So let's be real, let's be different, and let's get courageous, y'all.
Hi, I'm Regina Buchanan, licensed professional counselor supervisor. I am the CEO and founder of The Balancing Place. We are a mental health practice here in the state of Texas, and I'm so excited to talk to you all about PTSD in the workplace.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm your host, Brittany Mack, and we are in store for a very, very, very important, kind of emotional episode today. We're talking about PTSD and how it shows up for us in the workplace. And I've got a phenomenal guest who's going to be helping us walk through all of this, including myself, through some of these traumas that we deal with on a personal and work level. So I'm so excited to have Regina in here with us. Regina, thank you so much for attending and being part of this because it's such important work that you do.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So talk to us first about real quick why you got into the space and tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Well, I am a licensed mental health professional. I help individuals just deal with the stresses of life, particularly with workplace trauma, helping them just navigate like how to deal with the experiences they've had, how to go back into the workforce, how to advocate for themselves. And that kind of opens me up to like why I got started. It's really important for people to just know how to use their voice, and to know how they can protect themselves.
Thank you for sharing that. And it gets very emotional for me because it took me a long time to learn how to use my voice. And now that I've figured out how to do that, because I had a lot of therapy to get to the point that I'm at right now, I think it's really important to have you help other people be able to do this. So we're talking about PTSD today. Can you tell our viewers what PTSD is and how that might show up so we can have a clear understanding of what that is for starters?
Okay. So PTSD really just involves an individual experiencing a traumatic event and it eliciting some type of bodily response to where you might have anxiety attacks, you might have flashbacks, you might become a little hypervigilant, and the traumatic experience is really based off of how you process it. And so it might be a microaggression, it might be you being passed over for certain promotions, certain pay rates that you're not able to access, glass ceiling situations. So yeah, it's really going to be based on the individual.
Yeah, I can all too familiar. I mean, everything you were saying was like, check. Been there, done that. And I think it's really good to know that, you know, people experience these type of things when they go into work. And the reason the episode is titled The PTSD in Paradise is because it actually is from my own trauma. I personally worked in sales. A lot of times, you know, being in a sales role, you're held to a certain standard of constantly having to fill this bucket up of hitting your numbers. And your worth can be quickly attached to like, am I worthy enough of being here because I'm not producing? I'm not doing what, you know, the business is asking me to do. And oftentimes personally, I would show up and feel like, you know, I wasn't good enough, or, you know, and being in sales roles constantly, you know, they're high turnover roles. They're transactional sometimes, and oftentimes you just feel like you're alone, especially if you're not that number one person on the board. If someone's showing up in a workplace going into a new role, this has been something I've personally had to go through. You know, what kind of things, you said microaggressions, triggers, things like that, like how would you say that shows up for someone if you're experiencing like a regression of a feeling? Like for me personally, sometimes I would get in my head and think someone was attacking me because, you know, maybe someone that didn't think I performed in a previous role. Like, Sometimes I'd get in my head and be like, oh my God, my manager, they don't think that I'm going to be able to do this. What do you think, are good ways to help people not be hypervigilant or assume that someone's thinking something about them when that may not be the reality of it in their new role?
Well, sometimes you do have to put those thoughts on trial. Sometimes it's real. You are really experiencing that. And something that I will suggest often is to ask yourself, like, is this for the present version of me or is it for a past version of me? And being able to determine if it's something from the past or something that's happening right now will determine how you actually approach the situation.
And what would you say are good ways to do that? Typically, like being able to say, I'm showing up right now, like this is actually happening, and I'm okay where I'm at. Like I know that this is real, or I'm bringing something from the past. I'm bringing that baggage with me. Like, are there good assessments or things that a person can do to ensure that they're showing up in that way?
Well, if it's something from the past, that's definitely something that therapy can help with, to help you deal with like traumatic experiences, because they pretty much put an imprint on your brain to where anything that reminds you of that situation, it could be the outfit you wore that day, it could be a restaurant that you went to for lunch that day, anything, it's going to take you right back to that scenario and make you feel like it's right in the present. And so therapy helps you to like reframe and create a different narrative around those things so you're not always triggered and taken back. If it is a current situation, that's something where you might have to get legal help. You might talk to a mentor. I know HR is not always the safest place.
Definitely not.
Yes. HR is for the company.
Yeah.
So that isn't always a safe place. A tool that I recommend individuals use if you are having a stressful situation is use your FMLA or short-term disability, to where you actually can take some time away from the thing that's triggering you, get some therapy, and actually like get the healing that you need.
Yeah, I 1,000,000% agree with that, because I just came back from an FMLE myself, and it allowed me to decompress and reprioritize the things that were important for me. And now I feel like I show up in my role so much more powerful and understand how to, enforce my boundaries. Because I think, people always think you hear boundary setting or, I've got to love myself for personal relationships. But like you still have also a relationship with the workplace and the people that you have at your job. And so those things need to be tended to in the same way, if not more, in my personal opinion, there, because you are collecting your check from these companies. And so a lot of times I feel like people put up with more in these places because of that compromise, that conflict of interest. And they always let go of who they are and put that secondary on the back burner because, well, I got to support my family. I've got to support me. So I'm just going to let them treat me however way, So thank you for saying that. I was going to ask, when we're thinking about healing, right, and trying to strive forward for being better people, PTSD can be very, like to your point, very triggering. If someone has a panic attack at work, if someone is thinking about something in the way that they maybe have shown up, in that moment, what do you think are good tools for someone to be able to do as it's happening in that moment that someone can take away with them and implement, if they were listening to this series today?
Well, the quickest tool is going to be breath work. It's something that you can do discreetly. It takes a few seconds. And it's really powerful. What it does is it turns on a certain part of your brain and turns off a different part. Whenever you are triggered, your amygdala is active. And so that is your fight or flight or freeze. And it basically puts you in this emergent state where you feel like someone is after you. And so once you start these breathing exercises, it actually turns on your prefrontal cortex to where it deals with authentic personality expression, relating to others socially, and rational decision making. And so you're able to actually make rational decisions, be yourself, communicate with others around you once you start to activate this breathing exercise and actually calm your nervous system.
would you say someone should do that in that moment? Let's say they have like a manager that just don't give a damn about them, right? And they're talking to them, talking down to them in that moment. Would you say, hey, you know what? I gotta pause here. I need to breathe. And that manager's just gonna have to like allow you the space to do that? Or would you say, let the event happen and then take a pause after? Like, do you think it's a personal preference of how that shows up? Like, what in your regard or what in your idea is the best way to allow that space for that person?
Well, it's really based on the person. If you can handle actually breathing in the presence of the person, you can breathe in through your nose, and it's diaphragmatic breathing. So you're breathing in through your nose, and it's like your belly is expanding, like a balloon is inside of it, and then you're breathing out through your mouth like you're blowing through a straw. So if you can do that in front of somebody, then you can do it right there. However, if you feel like I need to actually remove myself from the environment, then you can say, hey, I need to take a break. Can we pause this meeting and then come back maybe in like 5 minutes?
Okay. Very good insights for sure. I want to reinforce something that I think is very important that a lot of people don't do to help them with PTSD, which I think is setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is a healthy way of setting boundaries for people when they either are coming back from leave, in the workplace while they're working actively? What are healthy ways to establish boundaries with, your employer or whoever you're dealing with at work?
Well, as a mental health professional, whenever my clients are on leave, I actually recommend that they come back in an intermittent schedule to where they're not going full time, like 40 hours a week. Maybe we start out a couple to 2 to 3 days a week, or maybe we're doing half days. So that way you can actually catch up on work that you haven't been able to tend to since you've been on leave. Or you just get more into a routine of like getting yourself up and taking care of your mental health, taking care of your physical health, and then you can actually show up the best employee that you need to be.
Thank you for saying that for sure. Oftentimes, we hear people bring trauma into work because of the things that they've dealt with in their personal lives. And oftentimes I also hear, when you're in the workplace, you have to shut everything off. Your emotions shut off. You're just going in here to collect the check, hi, shake hands, kiss babies, and then leave, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't think that that's something that most people are able to do in a way that allows them to really be free and live in their most authentic truth. How do you feel like people can show up and be their most authentic self, even embracing the PTSD, even embracing the traumas that they brought in? What ways do you think are ways someone can embrace more of themselves in the workplace?
Well, I definitely think acceptance. A lot of times we will think that we can show up and be these robots, and it's not real. And really accepting, hey, this is actually how I present at work. These are the tools that I need whenever I'm being the most successful I can be, and actually bring those things with you. So the type of therapy that I do is acceptance and commitment therapy. And whenever we use the term acceptance, it means to receive what's being offered. And so if we can receive that, hey, I was traumatized. I need to prepare to be a traumatized person going back into the workplace. So that way I have all the tools I need. I have the support that I need. I have the breaks that I need. I have the food that I need, just so that way I can actually perform and be my ideal self.
Yes. And people don't want to admit they're traumatized people too. That denial is real. Everyone's perfect. We don't make mistakes here. Right. Yeah, I think that's very important. And creating space for you to go in and ask for the things that you need. I think people are very afraid to ask for things they need at work. It can be very debilitating because you have this compromised conflict of interest. Your money is here. How would you recommend people use their voice to advocate better for themselves? Would you say like they need support groups or, auditing their environments, making sure that they're, working for the right types of people? What type of things do you think create a psychologically safe environment so someone can feel comfortable being able to advocate and ask for things that they need?
Well, one, identify what it is that you need. Don't expect the company to provide it for you. Whenever you're vetting a company, maybe looking at their values and making sure that their values align with like what it is that you need, the type of environment. And then you just have to experience.
Yeah, I would agree. Auditing the companies and the values, making sure they align with yours. I think it's very critical to be able to ensure that you're setting yourself up for success. I think that's something that's very overlooked when you're like, hey, trying to race to make a check, create that dollar. Hey, I got bills to pay. But I think what's important to note is, your psychological well-being is more important than the check that you're getting, because in order to thrive and have the things that you need to provide for your family, you want to ensure you're going to show up and be somewhere that you can stay and progress and feel comfortable to continue to go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. I did have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you for our guests too. What type of books or what type of resources, if any, that you can think of that would allow them to help with thinking about a space to help them thrive in these environments? Are there any type of things you would give our listeners as a resource?
Of course. Just for more information on trauma, there is a book and it's called The Body Keeps Score. And it basically just outlines how trauma might show up in the body. Education on just what you're experiencing as an individual is really important, because if you can't understand your body, then you can't communicate what it is that you need. And so The Body Keeps Score, Boundaries by Nidra. Her last name begins with a T. I don't want to look at her. But the last name begins with a T. And she's like an expert on boundaries. And so she has really good tips on how to help set boundaries in different environments with different relationships. And then, of course, I'm going to advocate for therapy. I think that having a therapist, I always tell people I'm like a diary and I just talk back. And so just having a space where even if you don't know what you're going to talk about, that's your therapist's job. And they help you to kind of navigate your thoughts, your feelings, and just kind of how to categorize them.
I absolutely love that. And are you accepting patients out here? I mean, I know you've got to practice. I'm going to put you, give you your flowers because you're doing it. And, I just, even just being able to think about this, this episode, your presence, what you're building, are you accepting patients as well, or new clients?
I am.
Okay.
And it's me and 5 other clinicians. So if I am not, then we definitely have space and somebody else can help you.
Absolutely. So, and then what's your name of your practice, so our listeners know where they can go to get help if they need therapy?
The Balancing Place.
The Balancing Place in Dallas.
Yes.
Okay, Dallas, Texas. Okay.
Actually, we service all of Texas.
All of Texas. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And then rapid fire question. If you are, driving down the street and you're trying to hype yourself up, what song are you listening to?
Oh,
What?
I Am Woman.
I Am Woman. Okay. And what are you looking for in terms of like books or podcasts or things that you're listening to today? Do you have any go-to items for yourself?
So a podcast that I listen to often is Untangle. It's a podcast for like curious individuals.
Okay.
They just have random curious things that people might want to know more about.
Okay.
I love integrative health, and so anything that deals with food and how it impacts your mood.
Oh, that's all
I
I
would nerd out on that too.
Okay. I'm gonna have to get that one too, actually, because I like food and I like to know how it affects my mood too. Because if I'm not eating, I'm hangry for sure. So, okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and being with everyone and helping us unpack some of this trauma. So it's greatly appreciated.
Of course. Thanks for having me.